GroupBy. So GroupBy allows you to take any number of records, right, that you might have. You might take all different records and say, hey, I've noticed that for this field B, I have the values 2, 2, 2, 2, and then I have values 3, 3, 3, 3, right? And you might decide to say, hey, you know what? I would like to take all the records where B has the value of 2 and treat that as a single thing, right? Treat it as a single thing. And treat all the records where B is equal to 3 and treat that as a single thing, right? Treat it as a single thing, where I would like to treat it as a single record where B is 2 or B is 3 as a single thing. Yes? Now this begs the question of, well, what do I do with all the other fields? What happens to all the other fields, right? Some fields might not repeat. They might not logically be related to one another, right? One field might be first name, right? Or last name or social security number, right? And well, those don't repeat, right? Or well, they might, right? They might have folks that have the same last name, but they're logically different people, okay, presumably, right? And so what do I do with them? So some of the other fields might make no sense, to be represented in this single record representation. Yes, some might, right? Say one of them is maybe a score record, right, or a score field. You might want to say, it says, oh, well, that makes sense. I could maybe collapse all those values into a single value. I could decide that I could maybe do the average, right? I could do the average of all the scores. That makes sense. And then I could represent that as a single value in the score, right? And that's the average. Or I could say it's the minimum or the maximum or the summation. Yes, right? I can, what it's called, I can aggregate all those values into a single value. Some aggregations might make no sense. Again, first name. How would you aggregate first names? It makes no sense. Are you going to concatenate all the first names together? It makes no sense, right? Or last names. You can't aggregate that. So some fields make no sense to put them in the group, right? So we call this a group. This is a group, and it's grouped by B. Grouped by B. Yes, meaning give me all the values of B that are the same, group them, and then give me a single record representation. Make sense? Right? Again, and the only things that make sense to have in the resulting group are the field that I'm grouping by plus any aggregates of the other fields. It makes no sense to have a field here that is not aggregated, right? If I say I want the first name, then the question is, well, which first name do you want? I mean, there's 100 first names. Which one do you want? Right? Do you want to aggregate them? Well, it makes no sense to aggregate the first names, right? I mean, I'll aggregate the form for sure, right? But it makes no sense. So only aggregates and the field that I'm grouping by are the only ones that make sense to put in a group. Everybody okay? Right? That generates a whole bunch of limitations, right? And challenges of what can you do and what you can't do with a GroupBy. All right, and we'll see how that works. So let's take a look at GroupBy. So here you have a select statement. We have any number of functions, right? And notice we have a GroupBy at the bottom. See that? And I'm saying GroupBy. That means that iterate over all the values, right? Thousands of values, and says group by B, meaning look at all the B's where the values are the same, right? And when they're the same, put them all in the same bucket, right? They all go in the same bucket, right? The ones that are 2, the 3s, the 4s, the 5s, and so on and so forth, right? And once you've grouped them, right? In the select, you need to say, okay, well, which fields do you want? Well, remember the only fields that I can put in that select statement are the field that I'm grouping by, in this case column name. I'm grouping by column name, yes. And I can only put there the aggregates of all the other fields. I cannot put just any field here. It needs to be either the aggregates of all the other fields, or the field that I'm aggregating by, right? And you have the same where clause and whatnot. Okay. All right. So let's take a look at this. We said we have an orders table where you have in the customers. Notice we have 3 Alices, 2 Charlies, and 1 Bob, right? So if we group by customer, there's 3 groups, right? There's the Alice group, there's the Bob group, and the Charlie group. Yes, right? Meaning in the result of the group by, I'm just going to have 3 records. Right? Now, what can be in those groups? Well, certainly I can have customer. Right? What about the order price? Well, what do I do with 1,000, 700, and 300 for Alice? What could I do? Do I have to pick out only? I can only pick out, the aggregate of the product. I can say the maximum of the product of the order price, or the minimum, or the average, right? But I can't. The original values, 1,000, 700, and 300. The original values are gone. I don't have them anymore. They're in the original table, but they don't make it to the resulting group. Yes, only the aggregate make it, right? Whatever I choose, average, min, max, count. Right. Same thing with Charlie. The 1,600 of Charlie and the 100, right? I can add them up. I can do the average. I can do the min, the max. But the original values, 1,600 and 100, are gone. Don't make it into the group by, right? What do I do with the dates? How can I group? How could I aggregate them? Right? Do I add the dates together? That makes no sense. Right? Do I average the dates? No, that makes no sense either. I can do the minimum and the maximum of the dates, maybe, right? What about the order IDs? That makes no sense either. To go into the group, right? So probably that doesn't make it either. So here I say I'm grouping by the customer, which is Alice, Charlie, and Bob. In the resulting group, I can have the customer, right? Because I group by the customer. And then the order price, I am aggregating it. I'm aggregating it with the sum function. The sum function will just add up all the values of that field, right? And they'll add them up together, and then the total goes out, right? So 2,000, 1,700, I think it's 1,600 plus 100, right? And those are all the summations. I could have used other things, average, min, max. Now, if you have an aggregate function like sum, right, but do not have a group by, if you do not have a group by, then the database interprets this that what you meant to do is to take the entire data set in a table and treat it as if it were a single group, right? As if it were a single group. Right? And then it'll aggregate. It'll do all the aggregations from the order price, and we'll add everything: the ones from Alice, the one from Charlie, the ones from Bob. It might make no sense. Well, actually, it might. Right? You want to add up how much did we sell this year, right, or this quarter, or this month, right? And I want to go across all the sales from all the vendors. I want to add everything up. Maybe that makes sense. So the result is the original fields plus the aggregate. You can aggregate by multiple columns, right? We've seen grouping by single column. You can aggregate by 2 columns, or 3 or 4, right? And that means that only where the values are the same for both columns, right, will go in the same bucket, in the same group, right? So if the customer date, the order and the customer are the same, then they will go in the customer date group, right? So this allows me to say, well, how much did I sell to this customer in a particular date? I might have many orders, right, for the same date, for the same day. I might have sold a whole bunch of things, right? And then I could look at the orders for per date for the same customer, right? Which allows me to generate some interesting reports. There's a couple of other aggregate functions like min and max, right? That allow me to aggregate them, the graduation year and the minimum and max for the graduating year. Right? I can rename them and give them meaningful names for those columns, as min year, as max year. Okay, so let's take a look at some of the limitations